Hello, Ijao Martins, licensed marriage family therapist, couples therapist. So I just came back from a road trip to San Diego, and I met up with my therapist friends in Ojai and in San Diego, had wonderful conversations about couples, work, and relationship. And as I was driving a lot, I listened to my favorite Zumba music to keep me on the road. And that made me think a lot about what's the common thread between being a Zumba instructor and being in a romantic, long-term committed relationship. What are the similarities? So there's one fun fact about me. I'm also a certified Zumba instructor and I teach Zumba on the side for fun. So I think the thing in common between being a good Zumba instructor and being in a relationship as a partner for to work on your committed and romantic relationship is the system-centered thinking and living. What does it mean? Let's take a look and use Zumba as an example. So when I'm teaching a Zumba class, my role is a Zumba instructor. So what I need to do is to provide very clear instructions to my students so they can follow up with this routine of dance and choreography and burn some calories and do a great workout, have some fun, and be safe. And as Zumba instructors, we do something called cueing with our hands. For example, if I do this, that means step one left, step one to the right. If I do this, that means going to the right for 2 steps. So those are the cues we use, we call cueing. And the timing is very important. So you wanted to give the cueing maybe 10 or 15 seconds before the next move, before the transition, to prepare the students mentally and emotionally to get ready for a change. And the student's role is to number one, be a good student, follow instructions. Number two is to have fun. The context is teaching a Zumba class either online or in person with some great music. And I think the goal is to have a safe workout and have fun. So what happens if the persons involved in this context doesn't follow their roles? What if the teacher's not giving clear instructions and having cueing all over the place or off time, off beat? That's very confusing for the students. And the student may not be able to follow. They're confused about the next move. You didn't prep me for it. And then they get frustrated and it's not fun for them anymore, so they don't want to come back. What if the students are not following their rules as a student and they may not following the teacher's instruction? I had students in my Zumba class pick up a little light weight and doing the movement with a weight, which is not very safe. So they're not following my leads, which can lead to injury, or they can go collide with the other person and cause injury, or not getting a good workout. So that is in the context of a Zumba class. The teacher and the student have their own roles and they have a goal, have a common goal. Is for the students to burn calories, have a good workout, have fun. This kind of thinking is called the role, goal, and context. This is system-centered thinking. So every little system, they have their own goals. Sometimes they're stated, sometimes they're unstated, and each person, each member in the system has their own role, and there's a contact to tie them together. So how about couples relationship? Let's switch to this context of romantic, long-term, committed relationship, which can be in the form of marriage or not. It can be between 2 people or more than 2 people. They can have the same goal set as building a home together, say buying a house and decorating it in the way that's comfortable for them to live. They can have the goal of having offsprings together, be co-parents. They can also have the goal of promote growth with each other, spiritual development. All of them are acceptable and very common, and is between the members of this couple to decide what are their goals. And each of them generally play a role. Um, Again, sometimes very obvious, they talk about it like, oh, I'm very good at finances. I will always be doing the tax. The other person might be so, well, I have a degree in education. I will be in charge of teaching and educating our children for the most part. If they are very clear with their roles and they identify them and negotiate and agreed on them, everything's very clear. They have the context, they have their goal, they have roles in this system, and things tend to run very smoothly. The problem arises when they don't talk about those things, or those things are unconscious, or they may have their own each individual agenda and presumptions, and they project it onto the other person. For example, the same, if the person who's very good at finance thinking, well, I'm very good at finance, I will take care of the tax and all the financial things. You don't need to worry about a thing. But they didn't talk about it. And the other partner may feel left out. Same thing if the other partner is very good at education and they took charge of all the things related to the children, and the other parent felt left out. Like, oh, well, you didn't talk to me about what schools that kids should be going to, or activities. You always just take over, and I felt like I didn't have a voice in that. That is the problem. That's when the conflict arises. So when you have a system-centered way of thinking and loving, that can make your relationship runs more smoothly. So most couple come to me when they are either the roles are not very clear, not well defined, or there's a life event changed happened, the context changed. For example, the children went to college and they suddenly the system changed and they need to transit to a different developmental stage of their relationship. And so their roles need to be redefined and their goals need to be also updated. And they haven't got to that yet and they don't know about this role goal and context and the system-centered thinking. So they get stuck and they come to me with all the presentations of fights and conflicts or Cold War, not talk to each other, or even at the brim of divorce. So what are the common complaints I'm hearing for couples? Very, very extensive, but the major ones are money, finances, right? Sex, intimacy, co-parenting issues, boundaries, and division of labor and chores. So when they get stuck in those conversations, I either hear very explicitly or sometimes not explicitly. I see that from their tone of voice, their body posture, gesture, or facial expression, that they often ask a question, not a real question, but rhetorical question. They say or imply, why should I do that first? Why should I change first? Why do you ask me to change first? Why should I do this for them before they do anything for me with all these years of repetitive dynamic or interaction that I didn't get my needs met? Yes, that's a very great question. And if you think from the framework of I, though, that's like contested context, it makes sense. You think, well, you should do this first before I do this. Or sometimes people say, well, because you've been doing that, I will do that same thing to get back at you. This is only fair. That is the I though dynamic. That's the framework you're thinking from. But if you think from a different perspective, I want to offer you a system-centered perspective, you may feel differently about this situation. Here, there's a little piggy bank I borrowed from my kids. So I think in a relationship, let's just say a traditional one, a man and woman, heterosexual couple, can be married or just committed in a relationship. It's easy for me to use the example, but we can apply this to polyamorous relationship, to non-traditional families, non-traditional relationships. Okay, so this is a partner A, or say this is the male partner husband. It's easier to use. This is the partner B, or female partner a wife, and when they got married, in a healthy dynamic, they do not merge like this. This is when you overshadow like each other, like eclipse. You do not see the other person behind anymore. They got shadowed, right? So in a healthy relationship, you are still your own being. You're holding on to yourself, but then you develop a new system together. Either is your marriage or whatever you want to call it. Now you both belong to this system, your relationship. So when you think about what do I want to change or do to help the healthy development of this dynamic, of this relationship, your piggy bank, then you don't think about the keep rope approach, like this for that, pure exchange. What you think about is like, if you're familiar with Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages, he talks about you want to give love the way your partner wants to receive love. You want to speak their love language. Even though if it might not be comfortable for you, it may not come naturally for you, it may not be familiar, it's extra effort, it's not convenient for you. But that's what love is about, that you go extra miles, you get out of your way to love someone the way they want to be loved because you're contributing to your relationship system. You are building the relationship that you want to have. Say, if you want to have a loving, supportive relationship where you feel safe and relaxed in, you got to contribute to the piggy bank starting from today, every day, any chance you get. If both people are doing that, guess what? This relationship is gonna grow beautifully. And when you're contributing to the goal of your relationship, that after you discuss with your partners, what is our value for our relationship? What kind of relationship we want to build? What each of us can use our personal energy, time, and effort to put in this relationship and make it grow beautifully. Doesn't it feel great and awesome to be able to target your goal and to have the agency to shift, to be aligned with your values and build something together? I know that we took a break from the ADHD and infidelity factors, risk factors. We'll pick it back up next week. And I also want to thank my friend John to inspire me to do this video on the system-centered thinking for couples. Till next time.